Joining us on 4029 News on the Record is Governor Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas and presidential candidate right now for the Republican Party for 2024. Governor, a lot has happened this week, including the news of an indictment against Donald Trump, the fourth one, in fact. You've been very outspoken about it. So what are your thoughts on the indictment out of Georgia?
Well, anytime a former president is indicted for criminal conduct, it's not a good day for America. And the fact is that you talk to people in Iowa and across the country, and with four indictments, it gets very confusing. All they know is that there's a lot of chaos that surrounds Donald Trump, and it divides our country. You know, half the people say, you know, this should have happened a long time ago and he should have been held accountable, and others say he's a victim of wrongful conduct by the Department of Justice or our justice system. And so we just got to rise above it. The fact is that we've got a lot at stake next year. And that's why the candidates like myself, we're wanting to talk about the economy. We're wanting to talk about border security and the challenge of fentanyl. And all of the controversy surrounding Donald Trump really sucks that energy and those issues out of the room.
Now, out of the Republican candidates, you've been the most outspoken concerning the latest indictment against Donald Trump. Are you surprised not as many presidential candidates have been as vocal as you so far?
Well, everybody is just seeing how this develops. To me, it's very important that when all is at stake in the leadership of our country, you have to be very clear. And the clarity of my message is that Donald Trump is not the right leader for our country in the future, regardless of how well he did or, you know, during the first term. The fact is he's made it clear that he's going to get even in the second term, and that's not healthy for our democracy. And then there's a question as to how do you bring in independent voters and suburban voters into the fold so that we can win in 2024, and we need a different leader to accomplish that. You know, the Georgia indictment, I'll just say, if I was a federal prosecutor, I would have asked them to defer that because it overlaps with the special prosecutor's investigation and charges he's filed on January 6th. And so I'm not a fan of it, but it's our justice system and we're going to have to work it through. Obviously, the underlying facts are very serious and really shows that Donald Trump misled his supporters. And that's the biggest problem. You don't want a leader that continuously misleads the supporters about what happened in the last election.
Well, Governor Hutchinson, the polls have been interesting, and so far the accusations have not really stopped Trump from being in the first place and leading the polls for the Republican Party. So do you think this might have an impact on the polls?
Well, we'll see. I don't think it will in the short term. I don't think 4 indictments is going to make a difference in contrast to 3 indictments. But the fact is, as I talk to Iowans, you know, this is sort of a default position for them until they decide where they want to go in terms of another candidate or an alternative. You know, they're going to stick with what they've got. And so I think it's very fluid. I think in places like Iowa, Donald Trump's going to lose in the caucuses. I think you're going to see another candidate, hopefully myself, that's going to arise as an alternative and catch fire in the state. But it's going to be late breaking. It's not going to be tomorrow or the next week. It's going to be later this fall and into the winter.
Still to come, we continue our conversation with Governor Asa Hutchinson. We talk GOP debate and how close a Republican candidate is to making the debate stage this month. So you are in Des Moines, Iowa currently, and you've been there and visiting from time to time. Iowa, very important for the primaries. So what is your strategy? What are people telling you that they need and want to hear from you?
Well, it's really great being at the Iowa State Fair. We actually have some good Arkansans that are up here campaigning with me. So one, is fun. You meet some great people during this, and you hear from them, and they're talking about the division in our country. They're talking about how messed up Washington is and how they want an agricultural state to be able to run their farms and lead their lives and educate their children in a way that's consistent with their values. So that's really a lot of the same message of people of Arkansas. I've been encouraged because a lot of people want to sign up and help me get on the debate stage. So we've got a lot of new dollar contributions going to asa2024.com, and that helps us get on the debate stage next week.
Let's talk about that. The presidential debate is coming up, and as of the middle of this week, 8 candidates have met the qualifications. How close are you to making the first GOP debate stage, and what do you need from voters?
Well, we've met the polling criteria, which I thought would be the most difficult, so we're doing well there. Secondly, we've had 200 donations from 20 states, so we met that criteria. And then we just have to get to the volume number, which is 40,000 individual donors. We're getting closer to 3/4. Hopefully, we'll be able to push it over this weekend. And so we got, about 5 days left to work, but everybody can help by going to asa2024.com. And it doesn't take a lot amount of money. It just takes $1, and that's a donor that will help us.
Now, Governor, I know that you need certain numbers from certain states or to qualify for the debates. What states are you targeting? What states do you need help in?
Well, the states have been really good. And first, Arkansas has just been over the top in support of me, and I'm grateful for that. I think it's a source of Arkansas pride. But then also, it's the people that know me the best. And so it's the surrounding states, Tennessee, Louisiana, Texas. They all have been great. And Iowa has as well. So we're doing fine there. So it doesn't matter where they come from at this point. They could all come from Arkansas, every one of those donors, and it helps us to get to that 40,000.
All right. And one more question, Governor, before we let you go. The former president, Donald Trump, has said that he may not join the debate stage in Milwaukee because he doesn't want to necessarily pledge that he will support whoever gets the nominee. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll be prepared for the debate either way. If Donald Trump there, it's a totally different debate versus if he's not. And if he's not, we're going to be talking about a lot more substantive issues and showing the differences between the other candidates. So it's going to be entertaining either way. I don't think you'll know what Donald Trump's going to do till the very last second. If he sticks with what he said, he won't be there because he's refused to sign the pledge. So we'll see. But I don't think you'll know until the last minute.
All right, Governor Asa Hutchinson, thank you for joining us today on 4029 News on the Record, Republican candidate for President 2024. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Una.
Welcome back to 4029 News on the Record. We're going to continue our conversation about the Republican debate that is coming up. And Professor Andrew Dowdle from the University of Arkansas is joining us right now. And Professor, let's talk about this debate. There's a lot to unpack here, including who is going to likely be on stage and who is not.
Thanks, Una, for having me. Kind of looking at these debates, I know for most viewers, this is going to seem like early because we're still over a year away from the Republican National Convention. You're probably thinking, well, gosh, this is months and months even before Iowa. But considering a couple of things, this is really almost a little bit later than usual. So one of the things that's happened over the last 10 or 20 years is that you have a primary calendar that's become front-loaded. That means more and more of the appointed races are in February or March of the early part of the nomination cycle. So that really the nominee is probably going to be known by the middle of March, if not before. So we're kind of looking at that. We're only about 6 months, 7 months away from those critical races. So campaigns are beginning to go into high gear. And if you look at recent campaigns, this is not early. In 2019, for example, the Democrats had 4 debates by this point. So, looking at these contests, it really is something where this is about the time that they probably should be starting. Then if you want to kind of look a little bit at the people who are going to be on the stage, one of the things about these early races is these early debates, they usually tend to be kind of an incomplete slate. So the Republican National Committee had imposed 4 requirements. One was that candidates had to test at 1% in multiple polls, which is a pretty easy requirement to meet. There are a couple of others, though, that have been a little bit more difficult. Second is trying to get 40,000 donors. For example, Mike Pence, there's some question about whether he's going to be able to get that number of donors. And for example, Asa Hutchinson, who was our former governor, who's not gotten that. So there's a pretty good chance they're not going to be there. And then there's also the question of a loyalty oath. For example, the Republican National Committee has asked all the candidates to sign a loyalty oath that if they don't win, they would support whoever the eventual nominee is. And you've had a couple of major candidates, Donald Trump and Chris Christie, who've at this point not signed it. So, looking at this, you're going to end up seeing kind of an incomplete stage probably at the first debate. Again, some people have kind of compared it to almost the junior varsity simply because you're not going to end up having Trump or likely Christie being on the stage, who are two major contenders at this point. So, kind of looking at this, you might say, well, why would I watch this? Well, I think a couple of reasons. This is a chance for voters to become more familiar with candidates that they might not know a lot about. And that secondly, for all candidates, no matter who's appearing, there are usually different goals that are kind of reachable goals as a result of one debate. For most of the candidates on the stage, it's going to be to have a good debate, get some familiarity among voters. The people who are currently polling at 2 or 3%, this is a chance for them to kind of break through and get people to pay attention to them. So, for example, this ended up helping Mike Huckabee in 2008, where he had entered the campaign as a recent unknown and had done really well in debates and early media interviews, and really kind of ended up getting a lot of notoriety. And then secondly, you look at, for example, Ron DeSantis, who's somebody that most people have familiarity with, whose campaign is kind of really kind of leveled off in the last couple of months. For him, this is a chance to really kind of reinvigorate his campaign and relaunch himself as a major contender to Donald Trump for the nomination.
Now, Professor Dowdle, what about someone like former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who has yet to make it? He qualifies in a couple of things, but he hasn't made the donor threshold for the debate. Is this going to be a huge setback if he doesn't make it to the first debate?
It's probably not a fatal setback, because there are going to be a number of these events, and even though the campaigns are starting, as we talked about, they're still 6 or 7 months away. It's really too early to hit the panic button, I think, for any of these campaigns. That, probably if you're talking about the former governor being in this position in 3 months, I'd be very concerned if I was in his campaign. But they still have chances to kind of turn this around over the course of the end of summer and early fall.
Now, the indictments against former President Donald Trump, the fourth round, they come at a kind of unique time. Can you talk about how it may or may not affect debate night?
Well, again, it really does have a big effect in a number of ways. First, there is a rumor in Georgia that former President Trump, who has until a week from Friday to turn himself in for processing, may do that on Wednesday to really upstage the debate, because at that point, you're kind of looking at which event should be covered. And, obviously that's going to end up really kind of distracting from that first debate, simply because there's going to be a lot of coverage of that event. Secondly, it really does end up kind of presenting candidates with this difficult choice. Do you end up criticizing Donald Trump or not? And if looking at this, you've had a number of polls that have shown that a majority of Republican primary voters, likely primary voters, have supported Donald Trump, have opposed these. But at the same time, you do have people like Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson who are really trying to find niches there in those people who, either are kind of actively opposed to Trump or just may even be tired of Trump. So, looking at that, that becomes this real question about how do I end up approaching that? And it's a really difficult environment. There have been some works that have shown that during the process of the debate, if you're kind of testing audiences, that the feelings, not only for everybody on the stage, but also for other candidates who aren't on the stage who are part of your party, ends up increasing in terms of positivity. So everybody kind of gets a positivity bounce. It's usually higher for those people who are on the stage, but that becomes, this very difficult environment in which, even though candidates may be attacking each other, there tends to be this feeling at the end, well, all of our candidates did well, maybe just some of them did better than others. We need to rally together as a party. So that also becomes something, especially with everything that's going on, that ends up becoming really a difficult dilemma for the candidates. Do I criticize President Trump? What position do I take? Do I take up these questions and end up acting supportive? How much of my time that's very limited, and remember, these are candidates with very little exposure, how much of my time do I want to spend on defending another candidate? So it really does become a difficult question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Dowdle, for talking to us during this interesting climate as we head into election season, the big GOP debate happening very soon. So thanks for joining us, Professor Dowdle, and we'll look to your expertise again sometime very soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this 4029 News on the Record. We want to know what issues are most important to you as the voter. Email us at ontherecord@4029tv.com and visit our website 4029tv.com for more political coverage. We'll see you next week, same place, same time, as we continue our conversations with area newsmakers.